We regret to be the bearer of bad news, but it came out recently that Aaron Carter has passed away at 34 years old. The musician had a pretty troubled life, and while his fans hoped that things would turn around for him, it ultimately didn't pan out. In this video, we'll talk about who Aaron Carter was and what kind of life he had, and we'll also check in with his fiancée, Melanie Martin. First up, here's what we know about the circumstances of Aaron's passing. The news was broken by TMZ, and their info comes from sources in law enforcement. Aaron was found unresponsive in his bathtub by the house sitter, who quickly notified his fiancée, Melanie Martin. She made the call to 911 at 11 a.m., but it appears he was pronounced dead on site. While Melanie reported a drowning to 911, the official cause of death hasn't been determined just yet. His household is currently surrounded by police tape, and the scene is being investigated by homicide detectives. We should note that this doesn't necessarily mean there were any signs of foul play, as homicide investigations are a routine procedure in cases like this. There are reports that Aaron didn't even leave behind a will, which seems to rule out suicide or something like that. As far as we can tell, his death was either accidental or caused by a sudden medical event. We hate to say it, but knowing how many drugs he used and was probably still using, an overdose or a cardiac problem sounds pretty likely. Aaron leaves behind his mom, Jane Elizabeth Carter, and his brother Nick Carter, whom you may have heard of as the Backstreet Boys guy. He also has a twin sister, Angel, and other sisters, Bobby Jean, Virginia Marie, and a half-brother named Caden. There is, of course, Melanie Martin, his on-and-off partner, and their almost one-year-old son, Prince. Now, let's talk a little bit about who he was. While a lot of younger people may not recognize his name, he was a major figure in the 90s and 2000s. He started taking an interest in a music career at 7 years old, and at the age of 9, the Florida native used his brother's Backstreet Boys success to on-ramp himself in a music career of his own. His first self-titled album was released in 1997, and he promoted the album by touring alongside the Backstreet Boys in 1998. His next album, Aaron's Party, Come and Get It, dropped in 2000. The albums did numbers, making him one of the best-selling artists of his time. The debut album sold 1 million copies, and the follow-up sold 3 million. The third one went platinum, and he was a mainstay on the charts. After releasing Another Earthquake in 2002, he took a break from music before coming out with Love in 2018. In the wake of his death, his final album, Blacklisted, was released before its intended date. Along with his music career, Aaron also got involved in showbiz. He had cameos on Nickelodeon, and he participated in Dancing with the Stars. He also dabbled in the theater game, joining the cast of Seussical on Broadway and The Fantastics off-Broadway. Among the things he was really famous for were his relationships with Hilary Duff and Lindsay Lohan, who were just as popular as he was at the time. Next up, Aaron's life of dreams started to spiral into a nightmare when he became an adult. It all started when Aaron gained access to what's known as a Coogan account. If you follow the lives of child stars, or recently read Jeanette McCurdy's memoir, you'll know that parents of child stars are forced to pay 15% of all the children's earnings into a special account. The child gains access to the funds in the account when they become legal adults, but parents can sometimes skirt the rules and pocket chunks of the money for themselves. Aaron only ever got $2 million from his Coogan account when he should have gotten $20 million. He was also slapped with millions of dollars of debt to the IRS. While his parents blew off the money he worked so hard to earn, owning a 12-house compound at one point and a collection of cars, Aaron felt the crushing strain of debt. He worked hard to get out from under it, but it wasn't until 2014 that he managed to clear all of his tax debt. But anyone who's ever labored under the pressure of debt will know that it can take a lot out of you. Even if your debt doesn't go into the millions, it can feel like a hole that you can just keep sinking into. While Aaron never blamed his drug problems on his debt, it must have played a role in his addictions, and those addictions never left him. Moving on, his lifelong battle with drugs began. Aaron had a pretty troubled childhood and a difficult relationship with his siblings, but everything fell apart for real when his parents split up when he was 17 years old. He got addicted to weed at the time, and he started pushing his family members away. With all the issues he'd faced in the years to come, his spiraled even further. His fans were unnerved by the changes that came into his personality. The bubbly Aaron Carter, who dated Lindsay Lohan and Hilary Duff, was slowly replaced by an underweight and gaunt guy with tattoos on his face. And things got worse for him when his sister passed away from a drug overdose in 2012, and his dad passed 5 years later. In 2019, Aaron was diagnosed with a number of mental health problems, including multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, acute anxiety, and bipolar disorder. Despite mounting difficulties in his life, he began a relationship with Melanie Martin, and the two had a child. That relationship was, in many ways, a victim of Aaron's drug problems, as the couple dealt with a lot of issues between themselves. In the end, death brought an end to Aaron Carter's struggles. It's a shame that we don't have a happier ending for you, but that's how life is sometimes. For Aaron Carter, it seemed like he lived through one nightmare after another before he finally found peace beyond life. Let's move on to Melanie Martin, who survives Aaron along with their son. Of all the girlfriends Aaron Carter had in his life, Melanie Martin was probably the least famous. But even though her relationship with Aaron was difficult and came during the nadir of his life, Carter expressed on numerous occasions that achieving a stable stable and settled life with her, and their baby was important to him. So let's learn a little bit about Melanie Martin and her relationship with Aaron Carter. Melanie was born in Bulgaria, and she worked as a bartender before beginning a relationship with Aaron in January 2020. She'd been living in the United States for a long time, but how long exactly isn't all that clear. The couple must have found some serious chemistry with each other, because that same June they announced their engagement. Following in her boyfriend's childhood footsteps, Melanie used the notoriety she gained from dating Aaron to launch a career as an Instagram model and influencer. She also launched a lash line called Love Lashes, and she dabbled in the adult entertainment industry as well. While Melanie is pretty private about her past and personal life, she was happy to share the good times she had with Aaron and their baby on social media. They shared lots of videos of themselves with Prince, even just being together by themselves. It's a shame, though, that it wasn't all good times. Finally, there were a lot of difficulties in their relationship. As a celebrity couple, and with Aaron's own reserved parking space in the tabloids of the world, they made front-page news on many occasions for things that went wrong in their relationship. In March 2020, before their engagement, Melanie was arrested and charged with domestic violence. Though she was released on a $50,000 bond, Aaron went public with details of the abuse. He accused her of choking him, scratching his arms and back, and punching him in the mouth. He even called her Felony Melanie on Twitter. Of course, he did end up getting engaged to Felony Melanie a few months later, so it looks like it was water under the bridge. The couple welcomed Prince in November 2021, and then a week later they split again. In announcing their split, Aaron accused his sister Angel of telling a big lie and blamed Melanie for talking to her, knowing Aaron's past with his siblings. Melanie herself has also accused Aaron of domestic abuse and just being a difficult person to be with. It's unclear whether the couple was together when he passed. The official story is that the house sitter alerted Melanie, which seems to suggest that she wasn't in the house when it happened, and maybe they weren't living together. His last social media communication with Melanie was a sweet birthday wish sent on June 14, 2022. Considering the instability of their relationship, it's possible they'd privately gotten back together. That's it for today's video. We send condolences, prayers, and love to the family and friends of Aaron Carter. Why don't we use this comment section to remember specific happier moments of a troubled and dark life? And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.